You're being manipulated far more often than you realize. Right now, someone in your life is likely using subtle tactics to influence your decisions without your awareness. The strategic principles that helped Japan's greatest swordsman, Miyamoto Musashi, win 60 consecutive duels reveal 4 methods that will help you detect and counter any manipulation attempt. This counter-manipulation system begins by targeting the exact vulnerability manipulators expect you to have. Part 1. Emotional reversal. Manipulators have one primary target that gives them immediate control: your emotions. When someone makes you angry, afraid, or insecure, your rational thinking diminishes and your behavior becomes predictable. This emotional hijacking is the foundation of all manipulation tactics. Musashi understood this perfectly. In every duel, he maintained complete emotional detachment while his opponents became increasingly frustrated. As he wrote in his strategic principles, the important thing in strategy is to suppress the enemy's useful actions, but allow his useless actions. This applies directly to handling manipulators. Consider Musashi's approach during his duels. While his opponents would taunt, threaten, and display anger, Musashi remained unmoved, a still pond reflecting back their own emotional turbulence. He recognized that emotional reactions were useful actions for his opponents, giving them advantage. By refusing to provide these reactions, he nullified their strategy. In one particular encounter, an opponent attempted to provoke Musashi with insults about his humble origins. Instead of responding defensively, Musashi simply observed his opponent's increasing frustration. As the opponent became more emotional, his sword movements grew predictable. Musashi later wrote that watching someone's emotional state was like reading the weather before battle. It revealed everything about how they would attack. In modern interactions, this principle works identically. When someone tries to make you feel guilty, inadequate, or pressured, they're attempting to exploit your emotional responses. The first sign of manipulation is often an unexpected emotional reaction within yourself: sudden doubt, anxiety, or defensiveness. The emotional reversal method has 3 steps. First, recognize the emotional trigger they're using. Second, mentally step back from your reaction instead of acting on it. Third, maintain calm while observing how their strategy unravels when you don't respond as expected. This approach is particularly effective in negotiations. Mark, a business consultant, noticed a client repeatedly mentioning tight deadlines and budget constraints, classic pressure tactics. Instead of reacting anxiously or making concessions, Mark calmly acknowledged the concerns without emotional engagement. The client, expecting Mark to become flustered, gradually revealed that the emergency timeline was artificial, a manipulation tactic designed to secure lower rates. By reversing the emotional pressure, Mark exposed the true situation. Emotional reversal works because manipulators depend on your reactions. When you deny them this power, you not only protect yourself, but often cause them to reveal their true intentions as they escalate their attempts to get a response from you. While emotional control prevents manipulators from exploiting your reactions, even the calmest person can fall into predictable patterns that skilled manipulators recognize and exploit. Musashi's second principle reveals how to break these patterns entirely, leaving manipulators completely disoriented. Part 2. Expectation Subversion. All social interactions follow predictable patterns. We ask, "How are you?" and expect "Fine, thanks." We critique ourselves and expect reassurance. We make reasonable requests and expect compliance. Manipulators exploit these social patterns, setting up interactions where your expected responses serve their hidden agenda. Musashi revolutionized combat by understanding this principle of pattern exploitation. In his writings, he stated, "You win battles by knowing the enemy's timing and using a timing which the enemy does not expect." While other swordsmen followed strict protocols and traditional timing, Musashi deliberately disrupted these conventions. This strategy reached its pinnacle in his famous encounter with the Yoshioka school. After defeating 2 of their masters, the school planned an ambush with multiple warriors. Instead of arriving at the agreed dueling time, Musashi appeared hours early, catching the Yoshioka completely unprepared. By subverting their expectations about when the conflict would begin, he gained an insurmountable advantage. Manipulators operate similarly. They set up situations with expected timing and responses. They ask leading questions expecting specific answers. They create false choices assuming you'll choose between their options. They present problems expecting you to offer solutions they've already planned for. The pattern-breaking response method neutralizes these tactics by disrupting the manipulator's script. When they present a false choice between two options, reject both and offer a third. When they expect immediate compliance, introduce unexpected delays. When they anticipate defensiveness, respond with curious questions instead. This approach is particularly powerful in personal relationships where manipulation patterns have become established over time. Sarah noticed her colleague would consistently criticize their team's work just before presentations, creating last-minute panic that put him in control. Rather than responding with the expected reassurance or anxiety, Sarah simply said, "You might be right. What would you recommend we do instead?" Then waited silently. This unexpected response, neither defensive nor panicked, revealed that he had no actual concerns but was merely creating dependency. The key insight is that manipulation relies on predictability. By introducing unexpected elements into your responses, unusual timing, surprising questions, or novel alternatives, you disrupt the manipulator's carefully planned sequence. When their script fails, they must either reveal their true intentions or abandon the attempt entirely. Pattern disruption puts manipulators on the defensive, but Musashi understood that true advantage comes from controlling the conditions of engagement before the interaction even begins. His approach to environmental control reveals how to structure situations where manipulation becomes virtually impossible. Part 3. Situational control. Manipulators don't just exploit your emotions or your predictable responses. They carefully craft environments where their tactics thrive. They isolate you from support, create artificial time pressure, or ensure information asymmetry. The location, timing, and conditions of an interaction are often more important than the interaction itself. Musashi elevated this understanding to an art form. "Become acquainted with every art," he wrote, emphasizing that mastery extends beyond direct combat to include all factors affecting the outcome. While other warriors focused solely on swordsmanship, Musashi studied how environmental elements could determine victory before the first strike. In numerous duels, Musashi positioned himself with the sun at his back, forcing opponents to squint into the glare. He selected terrain that neutralized opponents with longer weapons. He even chose battlegrounds that amplified psychological pressure on his adversaries. One account describes how he deliberately selected a narrow mountain pass for a duel against an opponent known for wide, sweeping sword techniques, rendering his opponent's primary strength useless. This environmental mastery translates directly to handling manipulation. Rather than trying to resist manipulation tactics during an interaction, you can structure the conditions of the interaction itself to prevent manipulation opportunities. The environmental advantage method involves 3 elements: location, timing, and information balance. For important discussions, choose neutral locations rather than the manipulator's territory. Set clear time boundaries to prevent pressure tactics. Ensure information symmetry by preparing and requesting necessary documentation beforehand. This approach is particularly effective in professional settings. When Carlos noticed a senior colleague consistently manipulated team decisions through private pre-meetings and controlled information flow, he implemented situational control. Rather than confronting the behavior directly, Carlos simply proposed a new meeting structure, prepared agendas distributed in advance, dedicated time for all perspectives, and documented decision points. By changing the environmental conditions, the manipulation tactics became ineffective without direct confrontation. The situational control principle works because manipulators depend on carefully structured environments. When you take control of these conditions, choosing when, where, and how interactions occur, you eliminate their tactical advantages. This isn't about avoiding difficult conversations, but ensuring they happen under conditions that promote transparency and fairness. While these 3 strategies create powerful defenses, Musashi saved his most devastating approach for his greatest challenge. The legendary duel with Sasaki Kojiro wasn't just won through technique. It revealed Musashi's ultimate strategy that combines all elements into a masterful counteroffensive. Part 4. Strategic counter-manipulation. Musashi's most famous duel against Sasaki Kojiro represents the ultimate culmination of strategic thinking. Kojiro was renowned for his swallow cut, a technique of unparalleled speed executed with an unusually long sword. By all conventional measures, Kojiro should have won. But Musashi understood something deeper about strategic advantage. You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain, Musashi wrote. While others saw only direct confrontation, Musashi recognized multiple avenues to victory, including turning an opponent's expectations against them. The duel with Kojiro wasn't just won through skill, but through masterful counter-manipulation. First, Musashi arrived deliberately late to the island duel, keeping Kojiro waiting in the hot sun. This tactical delay served multiple purposes. It disrupted Kojiro's mental preparation, provoked his anger, and gradually drained his physical energy as he stood ready in armor. During his boat journey to the duel, Musashi carved a wooden sword from an oar, making it slightly longer than Kojiro's famous longsword. This wasn't just improvisation. It was calculated counter-strategy, enabling him to strike from outside Kojiro's range while negating Kojiro's primary advantage. Upon arrival, Musashi positioned himself with the sun at his back, further hampering Kojiro's already compromised state. By this point, Kojiro was emotionally unbalanced, physically taxed, and facing unexpected conditions, all before their swords had met. The duel ended with a single strike. Musashi hadn't just defended against Kojiro's strategy, he had systematically dismantled it through counter-manipulation, creating conditions where his victory became inevitable. This approach offers the most powerful response to manipulation: strategic counter-manipulation. This doesn't mean adopting unethical tactics, but rather using ethical countermeasures that expose manipulation attempts while maintaining your integrity. The strategic preparation method involves 3 steps. First, identify the manipulator's likely tactics and desired outcomes. Second, create conditions that make those tactics visible to everyone involved. Third, prepare alternative paths that bypass their strategy entirely. Like Musashi with his wooden sword against Kojiro's steel, you don't need to match manipulators in cunning or aggression. You simply need to understand the strategic principles that make their tactics ineffective. This approach doesn't just protect you from manipulation, it creates a fundamental shift in relationship dynamics toward greater transparency and fairness. What makes this system so effective is that it works progressively. Against casual manipulation, emotional control alone may be sufficient. For more persistent attempts, pattern disruption becomes necessary. When facing systematic manipulation, environmental control provides protection. And for the most sophisticated manipulators, strategic countermeasures become essential. Mastering the psychological battlefield follows the same principles as mastering physical combat. Maintain your center, control the conditions, understand timing, and prepare thoroughly. With these 4 strategies from history's greatest swordsmen, you transform from a target of manipulation into a guardian of clarity and fairness in all your interactions.